What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to talk about what I learned from the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And let's get started. So, once again, if you watch the Bigger Pockets podcast, the number one recommended book on by most people that got into real estate was Rich Dad, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So, basically, the summary of the book was Robert Kiyosaki grew up with two dads. He had his actual dad, which was highly educated with a PhD and worked for the government, and his uh, so his actual father was the poor dad, and then his friend's father was the rich dad. And that rich dad, he didn't have any formal education, and he invested a lot in real estate. And he was just showing the juxtaposition between kind of a rich mindset versus a poor mindset. So, kind of the key message that I got out of the whole book was the difference between assets and liabilities. So, assets, let me close this here. So, assets means money goes into your pocket. So, money goes to you, right? So, assets equals money goes to you, to make this very simple. Liabilities equals money goes away from you. If you can understand the concept of asset versus liabilities, that's basically the entire book that hit home for me. So, what's an example of like an asset, right? So, an asset is things that put money in your pocket, right? So, what is that? So, an example would be dividends. Dividends. So, this could be dividends from your bank. If you own like a stock portfolio, like index funds from Vanguard, VT Sachs, it pays dividends. Um, if you own like Apple stocks, for example, and they pay quarterly dividends. If you own bonds, so um, another asset is real estate. So I'm gonna do RE for short because you have positive cash flow. So an example is if you buy let's just say you buy a single family home. I'm gonna draw a home here. And let's just say your total cost, so it's usually PITI. So that's property tax, insurance, um, taxes, and interest on your loan. So, and then your PITI, let's just say it's $1,000 a month. And then let's just say your property management slash capex, let's just call it 200 for simplicity. So you're all in for 1,200 a month. And if you rent it out for, let's just say you rent it for 2,200 a month, then you're going to net $1,000, right? So that's your positive cash flow equals 1K. So this $1,000 goes into your pocket every month. So every month this goes into your pocket, right? So that's considered an asset. In terms of liabilities, excuse my doctor handwriting here. These are things that put money out of your pocket. So what's that? Like paying rent, right? Like for me, even though I own 90 units, I'm currently renting because it makes the most sense for me right now, and I'm paying $2,200 a month in rent. So every month my money goes out. right? And another one is example could be your car payment. Every month, if your car payment's $200 a month, money is leaving your pocket. If you actually just live in a primary residence, so your primary residence. So I know this can be very controversial. Some people think that the home they live in is considered an asset, but by this definition, because it's taking money out of your pocket every month to pay the mortgage, you're not getting income from it. It's technically, your primary residence is technically a liability, but if you were to rent it out, it made positive cash flow, your primary residence can become a rental property, which becomes an asset, but then you're going to pay rent. So either way, you need a place to live, and it's going to be a liability whether you rent or you have a primary residence. I guess one can argue that by having a primary residence, at least you're paying yourself versus paying a landlord. But technically, through this definition, a primary residence is considered a liability. And what you want to do is, in the ideal world, so running out of space here, you want your assets to pay for liabilities. At that point, you're not even touching your own money. So let me give you an example. Let's just say my assets made me $2,000 a month. And let's just say my dream car is an Audi R8 as an example, right? So my liability, so this R8 is a liability. And let's just say the monthly payment, if I were to lease a new one, is $2,000 a month. So in order to obtain this R8 in a way that makes financial sense, in this example, is I need to find an asset that makes me $2,000 a month that can pay for my R8, pay for that monthly payment for my R8, right? So how do I get $2,000 a month? You could do an Airbnb, for example, and maybe you'll net $2,000 a month, and you can use that $2,000 to pay for your Audi R8. So now your asset's paying for your liability. You can own, if you own an apartment complex portfolio like me, the average is $200 per unit. So what is that? 10 units. So you buy a 10-unit apartment complex, and once you cash flow $2,000 a month, you can pay for that Audi R8 at $2,000 per month. And we shift your mindset in delaying that gratification for the Audi R8, because most people, they just want to buy the liability out the gate. They don't want to focus on the assets first. But if you focus on the assets first, the assets will buy your liability. That's how you become financially responsible and have your cake and eat it too. So if you look at a lot of real estate investors, and myself included, we live very humbly, right? Like I live way humbly considering a guy who owns 90 units, and I'm trying to lay that gratification. And then one day, my assets will pay for my Audi R8, and I'll live a slightly improved lifestyle. But once I kind of learned this concept, it completely reframed my mind and got shifted me towards the investor mindset. All right. So to kind of summarize here, I know I went through quite a bit. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. He talks about the concepts of assets versus liabilities. Asset is money goes to your pocket, so the money goes to you. The liabilities, money goes away from you, so money leaves your pocket. Right? If you use those two simple definitions, you can identify what's an asset and what's a liability. So once again, dividends, right? You get 1% from your bank. That's an asset. You get dividend let's say 4% dividends from VT Sats on a quarterly basis. You get dividends from Apple. You get dividends from your bonds. That's all assets because put money in your pocket. Real estate, assuming it's positive cash flow. So if you're positive cash flow, if your rent is $2,200, your expense is $1,200, you're going to net $1,000 a month, and that's all positive cash flow. So that's an asset. Right? Liabilities is something that money leaves your pocket. So it's rent, it's your car payment, primary residence. If you go on dates, you take girls out to go on dates. If I hate to say it, but if you have pets, they're a liability. I can add that down here. Even though they're family members, I get it, but they're technically a liability unless you monetize them. In that case, a pet can become an asset. So what's kind of nice too is you can switch things from asset to liability. Like if this real estate was negative cash flow, it's now a liability. right? If this dog that you own is a Instagram famous dog or YouTube famous dog that makes you money, it's now an asset. So if you can play around with how you want things, so you can have your dog, but you can just create a YouTube channel or Instagram for your dog. If it makes you money, get sponsors, it's now an asset. So once you think about that, and another example is car payment, right? So if I lease a bunch of luxury cars, but let's just say I create a lot of YouTube content about luxury cars, those cars go from a liability to me generating me income. So now it's an asset, right? So just kind of slightly reframing your mindset and how you think things and focus on building assets and using those assets to pay for the liabilities that you want. So overall, I hope you found value from this video. Please like and subscribe, and please place a comment down below as to which liabilities you want to convert over to assets. And if you want to check out the Making Multifamily Money course or my direct mailing automation service, check out the link down below. I hope you see you in the next video. Peace.